There's something quietly unsettling about secondhand treasures. They've lived lives before yours. They've seen things, witnessed things, carried memories that aren't always eager to be forgotten. When you pick up a dusty book, a battered toy, or a faded photograph, you're not just buying an object, you're inheriting a piece of someone else's story. And sometimes, if you're unlucky enough, that story isn't finished yet. Tonight, we unravel 3 real tales, ordinary people finding far more than they bargained for at innocent yard sales. Stories that remind us some things should be left where they were lost. The Forgotten Diary. Meet Casey Mitchell, a 27-year-old teacher who had just moved into a small rental home in Ashland, Ohio. She wasn't looking for anything in particular when she wandered into a neighbor's yard sale one Saturday afternoon. Mostly odds and ends, chipped mugs, tattered novels, worn-out jackets. Then, buried beneath a stack of old recipe books, Casey spotted something strange. A thin, leather-bound diary. The cover was cracked with age, the clasp barely holding it shut. On a whim, she bought it for $1, thinking it might make a charming piece of decor. She didn't intend to open it. But that night, as the wind howled outside and the house creaked around her, curiosity gnawed at her. The diary's pages were filled with tight, hurried handwriting. Entries chronicled the life of a woman named Evelyn, short musings about her garden, her loneliness, her regrets, normal things, until the entries changed. They grew frantic, disjointed. Evelyn wrote of hearing voices from beneath the floorboards, of finding muddy footprints by the back door, though she lived alone, of being watched through the windows, even when the curtains were drawn. The last entry chilled Casey to her core. If you find this, know that he is still here. He waits, he watches. I am already too late. Casey slammed the diary shut, heart hammering in her chest. The house felt colder suddenly, the shadows stretching longer across the room. That night, she barely slept. She swore she heard the soft creak of floorboards outside her bedroom door. But when she checked, nothing was there. Over the next week, Casey tried to dismiss the unease, but every night, the sounds grew louder, muffled thuds beneath her bed, faint scratching at the walls, and the feeling, that gnawing certainty that someone, or something, was standing just out of sight. One evening, desperate, she pried up a loose floorboard near her bed. Beneath it, she found a shallow cavity lined with old insulation, and something else, a ring. Small, delicate, encrusted with dirt. Inside, a single word was engraved. Evelyn. Casey moved out within the month. The diary, the ring. She left them behind, sealed beneath new floorboards, buried under layers of plaster and time. But sometimes, and when she's alone, she swears she can still hear the faintest whisper, calling her name. Before we move on, have you ever bought something secondhand that made you uneasy? Maybe something that felt wrong? Share your story in the comments. You might just find you're not alone. The Broken Music Box. Jason Ellis wasn't much of a collector. He liked simple things, old radios, vinyl records, vintage odds and ends. One lazy Sunday in Sacramento, he stumbled onto a cluttered yard sale at the end of a cul-de-sac. Nothing caught his eye, until he saw it. A small wooden music box carved with intricate roses, its paint faded by time. The seller, a thin, nervous woman, practically begged him to take it for free. Jason shrugged and agreed. At home, he wound the little brass key tucked beneath the box, and the music began. A slow, delicate lullaby, haunting in its beauty. For the first few nights, Jason barely noticed anything unusual. But then, late one evening, as he sat reading by the fire, the box played by itself. He hadn't touched it. At first, he laughed it off. Old mechanics, he figured. Until he began hearing the song. In places the box wasn't. In the kitchen, the bathroom, even outside his house. The lullaby became a constant background noise, weaving itself into his dreams. In those dreams, he saw a girl. She stood by his bed. She wore a tattered white dress, her hair falling in tangled curtains over hollow eyes. She never spoke. She only listened. Jason grew paranoid, sleep-deprived. He tried locking the music box away, burying it beneath piles of heavy books. It didn't matter. The music always found him. Desperate, he returned to the house where he'd found it. But the house was abandoned, windows boarded, lawn overgrown. A neighbor walking her dog saw him lingering at the fence. She stopped, giving him a curious glance. "No one's lived there for years," she said, "since the little girl went missing." Jason left the music box at the town dump the next morning. But sometimes, even now, he wakes to the faint strains of that lullaby, floating up from somewhere deep within the walls. Before we move on, have you ever bought something secondhand that made you uneasy? Maybe something that felt wrong? Share your story in the comments. You might just find you're not alone. The man in the photograph. Erin Walker loved antique shopping. Anything that smelled of old paper, of faded ink, and sun-bleached memories. On a whim, she picked up a battered leather photo album at a local estate sale in Vermont. Inside were dozens of black and white photographs, stiff portraits of stern families, wide-eyed children, sepia-tinted landscapes, and one picture that didn't belong. It was newer, glossy, color, a photo of a man standing in front of an unfamiliar house. He was tall, wearing a dark jacket, staring directly into the lens with a blank, expressionless face. There was something wrong about his eyes, something hollow, something too still. Shrugging off her unease, Erin tucked the album away in her bookshelf, but the man began appearing elsewhere. At first, she thought it was her imagination, a shadow across the street, a reflection in her rearview mirror. Then the photos started appearing, pinned to her mailbox, slipped under her windshield wiper, left on her doorstep. Each time, the man in the photograph was a little closer. One night, Erin woke to the sound of her front door creaking open. When she crept down the hall clutching a kitchen knife, she found a single photograph lying in the entryway. It showed her, asleep, in her own bed. The police found no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, no footprints, nothing. Erin moved 2 states away by the end of the week. The photo album she left behind, hidden beneath floorboards in an abandoned storage unit. But some nights, when the wind howls just right, she swears she can hear the faint click of a camera shutter in the dark. Secondhand treasures come with secondhand memories. And sometimes, memories refuse to stay buried. The next time you find yourself flipping through old albums, winding up forgotten music boxes, or buying faded relics from someone's past, ask yourself, are you sure you're bringing home just an object, or something that has been waiting for you all along?